Thank you. Thank you so much, Scott, and welcome everybody. I want to welcome you and introduce Alyson Murphy, who's Vice President of Operations for Fraport, Washington. And she comes to us with an extensive background with Fraport in other areas, as well as her work at Sacramento Airport and in Nevada. And I will turn it over to Alyson to tell us about what she's doing here at Washington Dulles and some of the new things that have taken place since she's come on board about a year ago, and what we should look forward to. So Alyson, thank you very much for being with us today, and we look forward to your presentation. I would ask if at all possible to hold questions to the end, and then we'll do a brief Q&A. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Scott. My name is Alyson Murphy. As Anita mentioned, I'm with Fraport Washington. So, just to run through, I've got a short deck today to share with you a little bit about Fraport, our organization, and a little bit what we're doing at the Washington airports. So we won a contract with the Airports Authority starting January 1st of 2024 to oversee the concession programs to develop, lease, and oversee operational compliance of all units, all the concession units at both airports. So you can see on the screen, this is our team here locally. Our CEO, Sabina Trenk of Fraport USA, is based out of Pittsburgh, and we have a local partner, Dr. Gina Merritt. This is my team. I have a team of an ops team at the Dulles, one at Reagan, and then a team that goes back and forth. We have a leasing manager, compliance manager, marketing manager, and specialty leasing manager that go between the two airports, as do I. So I spend half my time at Dulles and half my time at Reagan. So with that, a little bit about Fraport USA, and you may have a little bit of familiarity with our company globally. We are an infrastructure investment company. We have 30 airports all over the world, but here in the US market, Fraport bought what was Air Mall, what was previously BAA. We have contracts BWI, T5 at JFK, the Cleveland Airport, Newark Terminal B, and the Nashville Airport, which I spent the last 4 years building out the Nashville program before coming to the Washington airports in January of last year. So we have a good East Coast presence of overseeing concession development. We are what we call a developer model of concession management. So rather than the airport staff managing and leasing the concession program, they hire us as a third party to come in as industry experts to leverage our relationships in all of our airports and utilize our experience to get better rent deals for the airport and bring a different sense of place into the program. So where typically an airport historically has leased large packages of space for concession programs, we have about 85 to 90 fully built out spaces at the airports. Those would typically be leased out to 5 or 6 operators in packages of 15 spaces or 7 spaces, which has a large capital investment of in the $30 to $40 million range, which is a barrier to entry to the local market to participate in the program meaningfully. We come in as a developer and offer spaces in concession leasing opportunities in an individual unit space. So the local restaurant owner, the local business person has an opportunity to participate in the economic development opportunities at the airports. So a little bit different. I'm happy to answer more questions about that at the end of the presentation. Fraport globally, Fraport AG, excuse me, operates 30 airports. The Frankfurt Airport is our home base. We have a number of airports, as you can see on this list. We're in Delhi, Antalya, in Turkey. We have the 14 Greek airports. We're building a new airport in Lima, Peru, Porto Alegre, Fortaleza. And so we're just in a nice regional basis to get that market share. But Frankfurt truly is, our crown jewel prized airport at the Frankfurt Airport. And they build airports and run them from curb to takeoff. So the fire personnel, the baggage handlers, the ramp agents, they are all Fraport employees. So here in Washington, I put a, employment projection number from the Airports Authority for Dulles, because I primarily want to talk about what's happening at the Dulles Airport for this conversation and economic development opportunities that we're going to be releasing on February 14th. So we've seen a significant growth in passenger travel, as everybody I think is well aware. There's been a growth in the region post-COVID, and that recovery has been very strong at Dulles and at Reagan. In December, we saw a total year-to-date growth of 8.9% over 2023. And what that means for the concession program is increased economic opportunities as we value and look at spaces based on the sales per enplanement. Enplanement is the number of passengers that leave from the airport. Where there's total passengers is enplanements and deplanements. We look at enplanement numbers. Those are the folks that are coming, they're having dwell time in the airport, they're going to be coming to our concession locations, shopping at our news and gift and travel essential stores, and eating in our restaurants. So when we see these numbers of 8.9% over in growth over the prior year, this shows, a strong, healthy trend towards positive growth in the opportunities for the local community. We have another slide here from the Airports Authority that shows how that growth over time has really exceeded those 2023 numbers, including that international travel. And this is going to be important for the growth. United has stated that there's going to be a 30% growth in their enplanements and their traffic in the next 5 years. And this is important for the new Concourse E Tier 2 East growth in the context of how this is going to impact those travelers that are going to be a part of the economic development and those opportunities in Concourse E that we're releasing next week. In 2024, Fraport came in already midstream in construction and development that was taken over from our predecessor. We opened 32 concession units at both airports. I have a slide breaking down the units that opened for Q1 and Q2, Q3, and Q4. So you can see that growth and development. I hope everybody has had a chance to come visit these concession locations. We have some lovely local additions, from South Block to Gatsby to Atlas Brew Works and Zeke's Coffee. Also having the Capital One Landing, which is the first of its kind venture for the Capital One program to take their lounge concept and translate it to an area and experience in partnership with Jose Andres that everybody for a $90 fee can come in and experience this unique experience that is, usually reserved for folks at the highest credit card, the Capital One Venture card, which has about a $400 annual fee. Those folks can come in and experience these opportunities. And the DCA airport was the first one in all of the country to get a Capital One landing. So we're really excited about how the program is developing and the future of development, because we have a lot of opportunities that are coming in the next few years. So with that, we released phase 4 of an RFP, a request for proposals. We follow a government solicitation process for all concession leasing opportunities. We release a formal proposal and outline the qualifications and what should be in a proposal from your experience, the concept, your financial offer, your financial stability and ability to continue operations and build out the units. The capital expense for building a new concession unit can be $1,800 a square foot in the airport environment and take anywhere from 6 to 10 months to build out. So with that, we really are focused on somebody's having a concept, but also the ability to build it financially and then operate it once it's open through the term of that contract, which is anywhere from 7 to 8 to 10 years. So that's a 10-year commitment to be in the airport. So we have phase 4 that we released last year that is currently, we're in the final stages of leasing on a couple of units, and all of them are currently in the design phase. So we anticipate those units going out for construction in about August or September of this year. We'll see some new barricades go up and some units close as we continue that ongoing development. Phase 5 will be released on February 14th. We have an outreach opportunity at Dulles near the mobile lounge station that is on the ticketing level behind the Etihad ticketing. We're going to be releasing and going through each individual opportunity that's available and what those proposal requirements are for those 15 opportunities, which I'll go into a little bit further. Then this August, possibly September, we'll be releasing Phase 6. Phase 6 will be additional redevelopment opportunities at both airports. So we'll be flipping additional units. I imagine another 15 units. We do not have the final count set at this time. So how is airport concession rent determined? We have a number of ways that is, it's not a flat fee. It's based on a percentage rent, percentage of gross sales. Airport concession leasing is based on if the airport brings you more customers, they get a larger share of that rent deal. So we have a minimum based rent, which is typically 85% of your pro forma anticipated sales for the year. And then after that minimum based rent, you pay a percentage of your gross sales. We have a joint marketing fund that goes to pay for customer service monitoring. We have mystery shopping programs, intercept surveys. We have all kinds of programs that we use to ensure that each concession location is up to the highest standards of maintenance, repairs, customer service, and operational efficiency and excellence. The Joint Marketing Fund also pays for rewards and recognition programs. For the airport concessions, we do a manager of the month and an employee of the month, and we have a customer service gala at the end of the year to really award and appreciate the tenants that come every day, show up at 3:30 in the morning to open their restaurants and stay sometimes until 2 o'clock in the morning serving the customers and travelers at both airports. We have a common area maintenance fund for pest control, fire extinguisher testing, grease waste recycling, food court janitorial service. So there's a number of what we call extras in addition to distribution. So getting the products to the concession locations and their storage spaces involves a third-party logistics provider. ALM is our logistics provider at both airports, and we pay them on a per parcel basis for the distribution of those goods for the retail units at DCA and food and beverage units at IAD. We also have storage at the airport, which is limited and a hot commodity at both airports. Everybody wants space at the airport to store their goods. It's about $50 a square foot currently, and if we have it, it's gone immediately. So that's a prized one from the group, is to get additional ramp level storage. The airport has a program called Airport Concessions Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. It's a mouthful. This is a federal program with the Department of Transportation and the FAA that is encouraging the participation in the airport concessions program of socially and economically disadvantaged businesses. There is a goal currently for 35% for food and beverage and 25% for retail. So what that means is somebody can enter a concession lease as a whole 100% certified ACDBE owner, or have a joint venture partnership with another company that has that percentage. So we need to make sure we meet our federal goal of the ACDBE program. And the airport also has a certification program for small local business enterprise. We have every contractor of the airport, Fraport has a contractor where we have to ensure 20% of our contracted services are from small local businesses to encourage the participation of the local community in the airport's economic development. We also ask in our concession program that this be a consideration of small local business enterprise. All right, our leasing philosophy. What are we looking for us to really maximize the passenger options? This is very important to our not ensuring there's a Burger King on every corner of the airport. We want to be able to provide in the passenger journey access to coffee, to a full service restaurant, to a sit down, to a QSR, a quick serve restaurant, to have coffee, to have alcohol. We have to make sure there's a broad range of healthy options, fast food options to meet all the range. Because as we know from the Dulles Airport travel, there is quite a few. I think we're up to 54 different airlines that operate out of the airport. That's a very vast region that we serve through this airport, and those folks need different, we need halal food. We need everything that will service the customers. We want to offer a and opportunities to a wide range of subtenants. As I mentioned, Fraport's model includes individual leasing opportunities. We do not want to have the large global organizations. There's been a big consolidation in the concession management where we have companies based out of London or Saudi Arabia. They're large companies that are based outside of the United States that offer great stability to the program and offer great rent deals and such. But we really want to focus on those local operators that can bring that heart and soul into how they run a business and really give those opportunities to the local community. We want a transparent and competitive process, and we want to maximize revenue for the airport. So the concession revenue that comes in, everything, all the rent, there's a 97% of the rent that comes in goes to the airport. What that means is the cost per enplanement goes down. That goes into the general fund that provides an opportunity. All that revenue lowers the cost of landing fees to the airlines and increases the likelihood of more flights coming into the airport. The more money that we can add to the general fund through concession revenue and outside non-aeronautical revenue, the cheaper it is for us to compete for those flights. So, as I think a few of you have participated in the previous luncheon where we discussed this, this is the map of Tier 2 East at Dulles. So we've got the main terminal, Concourse A and B, we've got Concourse C and D, and Tier 2 East. So this is the first phase of a multi-phase development that the airport started in October of 2023 that is set to go open in September of 2026. So we are going to be releasing the opportunities for Tier 2 East. 14 narrow body airplane gates or 7 wide body. And then after Tier 2 East opens, they're going to start construction on Tier 2 West, which is anticipated to be 22 gates. So that's going to have a federal inspection system and really be focused on international. So we're really excited about the future growth of this entirely United terminal and what that means for the region and United's place and investment at Dulles. This is them making that commitment with their training facilities, with their increase in presence in Dulles is really great for our region. So here's that snapshot of what it's going to look like in the rendering. I'm sure everybody's seen the steel going up. They're building the concrete pads, and it's really coming up really nicely right now. If you come out to Dulles, you can take a peek out the window in Concourse C and D and see the current development. This is a picture from the inside, a rendering of what the inside's going to look. So you get that look and feel of, the wood ceiling and the terrazzo floors, really clean and modern with a nice open view. Okay, so here's the good stuff that we're going to be releasing. This is the layout of the concession program. Everyone is going to be coming up through this main circulation area in the central market. Their elevators and escalators come up in between spaces 1 and 2, and the customer travel goes through the center and down to the gates. So you can see that dispersion of how we have worked with the airport team to identify the news and gift and the retail locations mixed throughout the different gate areas to provide that access for folks to dine in a restaurant and be close to their gate. So with that, we have spaces 4 and 5 that are going to be dedicated to duty-free locations. And above spaces 1 and 2, United is going to be building a 40,000 square foot airline lounge for their customers. So those areas are in addition to the concession program that Fraport is releasing. So all of the pink spaces on this map are the food and beverage locations, and the green are the retail. So we're going to have a number of travel essentials, a number of quick serve, and really focusing on that full service sit down restaurant with patio spaces that allow you to sit near your gate. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of what's to come next week. Here's a view of coming up the escalators and seeing those locations up. We have a food court planned for space number 2 that we're really excited about. And then here's the grand hurrah. Our leasing outreach event. To register for the event, you can of course just come. We would love to have everybody scan this QR code and we can send this around. I believe Scott already posted this notice. Come and join us, hear more detail about what we're looking for in each individual opportunity, and we will be releasing the official document on Friday the 14th for solicitation of proposals to be submitted 3 months later. So that is where we are at. This is my real focused leasing team for contacts and more information. So happy to share and answer any questions. That was a mouthful.
Thank you so much, Allison. And please, are there questions, maybe a slide somebody needs to go back to regarding a question? That'd be helpful. That was a really quick overview. And when you were talking about the diversity of programs that you are having, currently, are there ones that are existing there now that are eligible for small business or considered small businesses already? And then I understand as programs expand into some of the tier 2 east and west, there'll be more opportunities perhaps in those areas. But if you could maybe talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So we have all of the food and beverage locations, with the exception of 2, are going to be individual opportunities. So we are only packaging 2 spaces so they have an opportunity to share a remote kitchen. So we want to be able to have every opportunity be something that a individual restaurant owner can come in. The travel essentials and news and gift units will be coming as one package. So those retail units will be one package of 3 spaces, and then one travel tech location for, if you come to the airport, we usually have like an InMotion or a Brookstone or a travel tech. We want to provide that individual specialty retail electronics opportunity for the local community. But the restaurant locations will be individual opportunities for small local businesses to participate. And then in the future, in the next phase we release in August is for existing program redevelopment. We will have individual opportunities as well for those spaces.
Okay. Mark, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. That was a great presentation. Really nice to see the development and what's happening at Dulles. Do you see any effects, either positively or negatively, with your operations, either here or globally, based on any of the new administration's policies or initiatives?
I think it's a little early to tell. I think from a construction standpoint, the thing that we're looking at the most is the impact of the tariffs on our construction schedules. So the increased construction cost, because a lot of the larger kitchen equipment, the VAVs, all of those big, larger mechanical units are typically, the chips are manufactured overseas for breakers. I know during COVID, we had a heck of a time building out spaces due to supply chain disruption during COVID. And I think the potential for that disruption to impact our operations will continue.
Thanks.
Anita,
Scott?
just a few questions. And first, as a reporter for CFD in many of my duties, do you have any issue if I register to attend?
Oh, absolutely. Would love for everyone to attend.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
And then, are you guys, I see with the new concourse, you're obviously involved in that, but in terms of the future designs of the airport, are you all engaged with the airport to talk about the retail needs overall? And I ask this because I'm always so impressed when I go overseas. And the general design is when you walk into the airport, you go into your ticketing area, and then you have some nice places to sit down and eat, even shop somewhat before you go through your Customs and Border Patrol. And then when you go through that, you walk into a shopping mall. You're no longer in an airport, you're in a shopping mall. And then you go through all of that, then you're finally at your gate. And it's just unfortunate why aesthetically, Dulles Airport is very pleasing, and practicality, it's just not very practical in design. And it's very hard to do I think what needs to be updated. But
Lots of thoughts on that, Scott. It really is a change in the consumer purchasing behavior within the airport environment that has changed that transition, particularly in the United States. And I think that this has, the global impacts of the flight status of not having those Asian travelers come into Dulles has really impacted the retail programs at the Dulles Airport because those customers have a different purchasing behavior than a US customer. We don't have a US market that goes to the airport and sees the shopping mall anymore. We are seeing customers looking for items that they forget at home, or they're looking for souvenirs. They're looking for, things to aid in their travel experience or bring souvenirs and things as memorabilia back. We're not seeing people come and do shopping like they would in a mall, whether that's due to not wanting to deal with the hassle. There's no oversized bins anymore because everybody brings their luggage on the plane as a carry-on. But I think that change in transition from a specialty retail focus, we see even at DCA. If anybody's flown through DCA recently, we opened a Lego store, a local concept, the Neighbor Goods, and we opened a Boss store. All 3 units are struggling. At Dulles, we have Vineyard Vines and Vera Bradley. Those locations truly struggle to make the sales because people aren't looking for those specialty retail concepts anymore, which is why we have focused the program more on the travel essential news and gift items. You've got your headphones, your chargers, your neck pillows, your t-shirts, your souvenirs, and then those food and beverage. So it's really about, we want to serve and provide those options and opportunities to service the customers, but unfortunately, we're not seeing them translate into being viable business models in today's purchasing behavior.
very, very interesting. Can you kind of take A and B and give a comparison of the retail space that will be in the new concourse? More or less or equal in square footage?
Oh, square footage wise. So it's going to be comparative. The new first phase will be comparative to Concourse B. So it's going to be that B portion. So we're looking at releasing 30,000 square feet of concession space for this opportunity. And then on top of that, there'll be about 5,000 square feet of duty free, and then that 40,000 square foot lounge on top of it. So all in all, it would be more than exists currently on the Concourse B with all those included. So there will be plentiful opportunities. That when we look at, Concourse C and D, they're a huge portion of the passenger traffic goes through the C and D at Dulles versus A and B. A and B has very empty, the high peaks and low in between periods. C and D is too busy for the number of concessions and the space that we have available. And so that demand for those locations, I'm sure if anybody has traveled in peak bank season on Concourse D, it's really hard to be able to get, find a space at the bar to have a drink before your flight or find a seat that's available. So we're hoping that this distribution of additional space and capacity for the concession program will be better serving the customers to be able to access those really important travel essentials and food and beverage locations.
Okay. I've got one more question, Anita, but I'll let others go first before I hog more time.
Anybody else with a question about what's coming? And I just had one about from your experience, the concessionaires that you have, whether one side food and beverage and the other on, as you mentioned, consumables like electronics and books, magazines, etc. Is there a percentage balance that you're looking for based on sales, usage, etc. When you
Yes.
develop this?
Yes, so industry standard is about 70% food and beverage to 30% retail to be able to provide the appropriate mix and distribution throughout the gates.
Okay.
So that's our metric. And we really look for, a about 1,000 square feet per 100,000 passengers.
Got it. Okay.
Hey, Alyson, thank you so much. I appreciate your participation in Committee for Dulles and the board. It's been wonderful. So I do have a couple of questions, and part of it just as Committee for Dulles, how do we make the airport better, right? How do we kind of push MWA a little bit, thinking differently about it? Are you local? Do you live here? I know you've got folks all over.
Yes,
Okay.
I moved here a little over a year ago. I
Oh,
love
so
it.
you live in Sacramento, and that are some wonderful places you've lived in. Come here.
Yeah, the Sacramento airport. I worked at the Reno Tahoe airport, which was lovely, and then the Nashville airport prior to joining in Washington.
That's awesome. So those are good examples of, I think we can do so much better. And then when you talk about Frankfurt, international travel, and Scott just took a team internationally working on the international programs. I'm looking at the things, I've traveled to Seoul quite a bit for some business. I'm like, we've got to do better. There's models for that. And I really like the fact that they have folks like Fraport that say, hey, we see other things. We know how to implement that. Are there places that we should be looking at or that you can point to as good models, or maybe we can begin to shape the master plan as they're not going to take and just mint it, but what are those opportunities and things we should be looking at?
I mean, from a concession revenue standpoint, I think our biggest hurdle here at Dulles and Reagan is the bandwidth of being able to do the necessary development. So we have major infrastructure projects the airport's focusing on at both airports. So we're looking at Tier 2 East, Tier 2 West, and then Tier 3. And at Reagan, we have Terminal 1. So there's a new Terminal 1 that's in the plans to be built in the next 10 years. So all of this in addition to DCA Reimagined, which I didn't mention, is, those NPIER units, there's a 4-pack of NPIER units. Those are currently in the process. We've taken down 2 of the 4 NPIERs on Concourse D. The other 2 are going to be torn down at the end of this month, and we'll be replacing 4 units with 1 unit. So that's going to maximize the hold room space and increase the seating, because the airlines, there's a percentage of, as they've upgauged airlines and aircraft, they need more hold room space for those customers. So we're really constrained about the bandwidth and ability of the airport team being able to manage what is necessary to meet the needs of the space constraints on top of the commercial development. So, we have to prioritize. There's a lot of development and redevelopment that I would love to release today that I have to wait 3 years to do, because the airport team has to focus on the larger base building construction and expansion before we can really get into some of the commercial development, which is lower on the priority list. So, while I would love to be able to make a big splash, it really is constrained by the bandwidth of the airport team.
Yeah, that's something for us as Committee for Dulles to keep in mind, and always remind M1 the prioritization of that as well. So hey, the other thing too is when we started talking, and Anita introduced you, I wrote jobs, 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 because we talk about economic development as part of this committee, and really that's what you're providing. Can you talk about, so if I'm a vendor and I'm a coffee shop, do I hire the employees? Do you hire the employees? How do they get there? Can you talk a little bit about those jobs? Because the better we can do in the region to get folks up there and feel comfortable, I know Luke's been working on that with data, the more easy it is to get folks up at the airport and employed.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the efforts of the Committee for Dulles in the job fair coordination. Our tenants have participated in the Committee for Dulles job fairs with success. So each individual concessionaire is responsible for their own hiring practices. They manage all of the employees. We're a contracted landlord. So we are the third party landlord. We assist and are the intermediary between the airport and the concessionaires as that business expert to help support and guide them in airport operations, which is very different than a street side business. So we help guide on, staffing and help give them, tools and tips and things on how to be successful, but they manage their own hiring practices individually. And we really try to focus in our messaging of employment opportunities that it is a gateway and a career. Working in a concession location in an airport is not just about flipping burgers. It's not about just pouring drinks. It's an avenue and access to greater potential. once you have that airport badge and are part of the airport community, in my 9 years in working at airports, I've seen folks go from a cashier to a manager, supervisor, to a district, a regional manager, to a business owner. And we see that all the time. Some of our local owners started in the property management or started in working in a restaurant or shop. So it's really important that we don't look at these opportunities as what they are on the face. It's a career within the airport system. We love to see folks graduate to working for an airline or another service provider. So we try as Fraport to message that it is a career potential and not just an individual opportunity.
Well, that's a great story. Boy, if we could maybe take a couple of snippets or examples from Dulles and share those, maybe part of the outreach that we do, and that would be a great story to tell.
Great, John. Great.
Hey, there's another couple, and I apologize for hogging time, but so part of my thinking was, if you're local, you've been around. I know my son-in-law has got a couple of restaurants. I mentioned it to him. He's like, "Yeah, airports, what?" I mean, he's got his hands full here. But I was like, "Hey, if Jose Andres is doing it, right, there's got to be something there." And then I started thinking about Weird Brothers Coffee. The problem is when we put it out, we share it, we put it on LinkedIn. We're trying to do as much as we can. And I don't want to say I'm old, but I am. It's just not received the same way. I'm wondering if there isn't an outreach to local folks, like to go to Jason at Weird Brothers and say, "Hey, you guys got to get out there. You're not committing yourself, but go listen to the story." And as you expand and think about that, have you do outreach to our local businesses? How does that work?
We do try to go. We, always accept invitations to community events, to, if there's a chamber event, a restaurant association event, we go to, small community events at community centers and try to get folks interested. Because in addition to those larger food and beverage and retail opportunities, we have vending opportunities, and the RMUs, the retail merchandising unit kiosks. Those are great for the entrant, for somebody that has a great concept and a passion for a product, because it's really about the exposure. What the airport economic development opportunity provides is all of those folks being able to see your brand. And we really look for folks that have an established, recognizable regional business where, for instance, if there's a concept that, hey, that restaurant, I would have loved to go to Gatsby, but I didn't have time this trip to go. You can hit it in the airport on your way out of town and have that experience with the same menu made by the same team that you can have on your way out if you weren't able to experience it while you were here visiting the region. So I think that's really what we focus on. Hey, you weren't able to go to Colada Shops coming into DCA is a great addition to the region. Daniela Senior, our team reached out to an operator and said, "We see this concept as something that translates. Every time I go to a restaurant in a region, I see it in a film, in a frame of mind of, is this concept translate? Can I see this design translate into an airport? Do I see this menu being able to translate into an airport environment? Can I get the seat turned? Does it take too long?" So we go out and we reach out to businesses and say, "Hey, we're interested. We think you'd be a great fit. Here's some operators that could potentially operate your concept for you." Because a lot of time that is what makes the most sense, is licensing a brand, which is a great investment into the community. If we can have an operator who is experienced, because it is niche, being able to operate from 3:30 in the morning until 12 o'clock, whether there's customers or not, you have to be open. It does not matter. 90 minutes before the first flight until 30 minutes after the last actual flight, they have to be open. So if we can get a royalty fee invested in the local community and get a brand in front of customers, then we're really adding to the traveler's experience and the local region.
That's great. I wonder, Anita, if we could think about outreach. I know it's quick, but there's going to be others, right? So often, like the sales touches, we got to get 7 touches on people. But reaching out, if we could think about reaching out to a couple of our local businesses, although not members of the Committee for Dulles, maybe we can spark people to think about attending this event. And that would be on behalf of the Committee for Dulles. It's a positive thing.
Getting the word out, and particularly ones that have, as you were saying, established and not necessarily a national brand that may be known.
Yeah. Yeah, and that plays
Regional.
into the MWA, 100 miles within DC, and there's a bunch of folks. It's a great story. Maybe even the Black Chamber of Commerce. Mark, a bunch of those folks that reach out through the broader VACI and that Greater Washington Partnership. Say, hey guys, there's this opportunity. You got to go ask, right? It's like a lot of things. Ask if people do it. You tell them about it, like, oh yeah, too busy, can't do it. But when somebody reaches out and asks you if you could attend and they see it, it might be a different change. Hey, and not to go dark on us, but human trafficking. I mean that's an issue. Unfortunately, I like to look the other way, but you can't. Do your folks get trained? Is it a concern? And where I'm going with that is the chair for the House of Delegates in Richmond. That's one of her hot buttons, but she also chairs transportation, and she's in our region. And I think as Committee for Dulles, maybe it's something we should pay attention to and help her as we build it in. But I'm just thinking, Alyson, your folks probably are exposed to it. Is there training you require? How does that work?
So absolutely. So the airport has recently started a training program internally. I know my team participated in the training to be able to translate the information that was shared and trickle it down to our tenant employees, because we do a lot of training. We do quarterly, we do fire extinguisher and CPR. We've had concessionaires that have given CPR to folks in the airport. It just happens. But the exposure and the warning signs for human trafficking working in the airport environment, it's been a hot topic my entire career. There's different regions that see it, and this unfortunately is a region where you see that potential. And it's about that awareness and those, really those tips on what to look for, and that real freedom and encouragement to make a call if you get an uncomfortable feeling. So for us, we try to translate that message. We meet with our tenants monthly, and we do include slides and information for them to be able to have that awareness and those tips.
Well, that's great. Thanks. That's what I was kind of hoping, but expected. Alyson, last thing, and not going to put you on the spot, but why did you join Committee for Dulles? And the reason I want to ask is because I want to be thinking about us, because we're all connected, right? We're all friends and family on this video. We need to be thinking deeper about that next thing. What got you to go, oh yeah, I got to belong to these guys. I see the value. I don't know if it fits for the folks that are out there in retail and have the time, but in terms of membership, we need to be thinking deeper about that, or maybe things that you saw in Nashville and in Reno and Sacramento and groups that helped out the airport. Just your thinking on that whole process.
About participation in the committee, I mean, I think it's important. I didn't know that this was going to be something that, Scott and I reached out to me when I first joined, because our predecessor had a place on the board. And so we took over that seat. I took over that seat on the board for the predecessor. And it really is important to that message to that local community, which is such a value proposition for Fraport. This is really what we want. We want the community to know about the opportunities, because it adds so much value to the product that we then deliver. So your team, I mean, I've lived here since November of 2023. I am not an expert on the region, but I am the conduit of making sure that the airport business, I can sit down and talk with somebody and explain to them how to do business and counsel them through whether it's a good idea for them and whether it would be a good fit, because not everybody's ready. I usually try to talk people out of it, and if they're not scared away, then they could potentially be ready. So I just want to have that opportunity and that conduit for an open door to access to the information. So, I think for us, we're at a place, I think there's a number of concessionaires that could potentially have interest in participating, but I haven't gone through a membership drive of our tenant yet, but maybe in the future.
Well, I mean, the scholarships alone, when you start thinking, I don't think and it's not a quid pro quo at all, but when you think about all the things we've done over the decades and decades, it's pretty impressive. But hey, Alyson, I love your energy. I love everything that you're doing. Thank you for being part of Committee for Dulles and being on the board. It's a breath of fresh air. Thank you.
Amen
Absolutely.
to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Alyson. And before everybody goes, I ask you if you want to do it verbally now or send me an email. We're looking for ideas for upcoming programs, speakers that you've heard, or topics that you think we should explore because of their relevance to Dulles today. So I was thinking of one, but Scott preempted, and we're going to do a program on United on that. And speaking of that, I turn it back to you, Scott, and you want to mention that because I think people should have it on their calendars.
So thank you, Anita. And just a couple of things to follow up on one of John's questions and an answer that you gave. We do have our upcoming job and career fair for April 9th. And Alyson, please let your guys know, and anybody who's interested in participating as an employer, make sure they email me and not register on the website, which is just meant for the prospective employees. So, and I need to get that email out to DAMAC so everybody's aware of it. You mentioned Frankfurt Airport, one of the airports I'd love to fly through or into. The few of us just got back in the beginning of January from visiting Turkey. It was our first international travel program that we did under the International Committee. I'd be interested in talking to you about maybe an opportunity to fly interested folks over to see the Frankfurt Airport, to tour Fraport, and the airport is as well. I think people would thoroughly enjoy it if they've not been there before. With that, thank you, everyone. We did record this meeting, so it will be up on the YouTube channel in the next couple of days, should you wish to review it. And speaking of which, Alyson, would you mind sending me the copy of your slide deck so I can post it on our website? Okay. Luke, did you want to chime in with something?
I did, Scott. I just wanted to say that as soon as you send me a flyer on the new hiring fair, I'll share it with some of our partners because we just started a new travel training program for the Centerville Immigration Forum and the Herndon Neighborhood Resource Centers folks, where we're taking them on the buses and the metro to Dulles to look for jobs. Okay. And we're about to start a new one in Loudoun County, same thing, that will take them to Dulles. And these are all for underserved folks to look for jobs at Dulles. So we'll try and get them all out there.
Sounds good. I appreciate that.